Well, the next station stop in the Isle of Man's International Race Week was Port Erin, courtesy of the Victorian Steam Railway from Douglas. 12 miles or so down the line, Port Erin is a favourite spot for cyclists, whether they're racing or just watching. And this is one of the better ways of getting there. Bradda Head overlooking the bay at Port Erin really is a beautiful spot. But we're going to have a look at the racing. The racers themselves won't have much of a chance to admire the scenery. This is town centre racing again, Port Erin style. It's been a regular feature of the race week for a number of years. This is the senior race leading up to the international one, which comes a little bit later. First man on the attack, Jamie Adams of the Cottingham Coureurs. You might have spotted his jersey in the bunch in the Douglas race, which we saw a little bit earlier on. Little fella and quite adept at going round these sharp corners in these town centre races, Jamie Adams. Cottingham, incidentally, in East Yorkshire, formerly Humberside. And quite a vociferous crowd in Port Erin on this lovely sunny evening. We've been blessed with gorgeous weather for this race week so far this week. Fingers crossed that it stays right the way through till the end. Jamie Adams then, the early leader in this senior race here in Port Erin. Once again, the circuit about the same length as most of the others, around about a half a mile, maybe just a little less. But again, with twists and turns, sharp corners, and the unwary can easily take the corner wide, bang into the curb, and you're off. This is Paul Hart, but quickly overhauled by the Tunstall wheeler Mike Shepherd as they go into yet another lap. This is a 20-lapper, incidentally, and roughly 1 minute per lap. The Tunstall wheeler Mike Shepherd from Staffordshire in the lead currently. There's Darren Perry, a quick shot of Darren Perry, the winner in Douglas for the second year in succession, just 24 hours before. But it's still the Tunstall wheeler from Darren Perry of Optimum Performance. That's the 1-2 at the moment, but very, very early stages. 1 or 2 gaps already appearing, though, and that means that the pace is high. Some of the riders finding it very hard to stay in touch. And this trio now getting away a little bit. Paul Hart leading them round the corner away from the start-finish line, which is right outside the railway station where the Victorian Railway comes to the end of the line from Douglas. Still Paul Hart, still from Mike Shepherd. That's the 1-2 at the moment. And I think I spotted Darren Perry right up there in 3rd and 4th place. And in fact, this is Perry now, a lap or 2 later, and he's gone out on the attack now. You didn't see it, but in the Douglas race, which he won prior to the international Kermesse, he actually won by a whisker in a thrilling sprint finish. Now, this time, look at this. The Chesterfield man has gone out on his own after about 4 or 5 laps and really going on the attack as if he means to stay there. Well, this is a very different way from attempting to win from his previous effort, and he really is trying very hard. You can see the pained expression on his face as Darren Perry, who most of the regulars to the Isle of Man week will know now because of his victory last year and again just the day before in Douglas. Here he is in Port Erin, powering on, the chase being led by the Cottingham Coureur rider, Jamie Adams, but this is quite a bit of a lead that Darren Perry has got now. Is he going to provide this race week with a Kermesse or circuit double? These Kermesses very popular in northern France and Belgium and Holland. It's actually a Flemish word, the word Kermesse. It means a fete or a fair or a gala, but over the years it's gradually become associated with bike races, which are often held on the continent as part of fetes and fairs and galas, and hence it's been used by most people to refer to this form of small circuit town centre race. Meantime, Darren Perry comes through to hear the bell. He's been out in front for a long, long time now. I can tell you he's been picking up a £5 a time, which is great news for him because he's currently out of work. And now then, he's only got 1 more lap to go, and surely this lead that he's planned... Oh, he nearly hit the curb there. Did you see that? It was so very, very close. Nearly came to grief on the curb, but he's okay. He's got about a half a lap to go to what would be a famous victory if he can hang on. And here he comes on the back end of the circuit now, hands on the tops there, face set in a determined expression. down onto the bottom of the bars to make sure he steers himself safely round these last two corners. This corner takes him into the home straight. He's well clear. Here he comes. Arms up in the air. He's still got 100 meters or so to go. He knows he's won. Looking back to see where... He says, look at this. He says, where are they? The answer is they're nowhere. The Chesterfield coureur, Darren Perry, having won in Douglas just a night ago and again 12 months ago, he's done it again. What a marvellous, marvellous solo win for Darren Perry. He can almost sit back and watch the sprint for the minor placings. Jamie Adams getting it from Paul Hart and Mark Thomas. But Darren Perry, a famous win for him in Port Erin. A solo victory, and nobody can deny that was a great race for him. Big, big smile, and I'm not at all surprised. Handshakes all round from Jamie Adams and Paul Hart. What a super performance. Well, that's certainly whetted the appetite of the crowd for the international Kermesse. This over 40 laps, and the familiar sight of Gary Adamson out in front once again in the early stages. I should point out, by the way, that the Kazakhstani Vinokurov added to the win you saw in Douglas by winning the Kerwins Handicap Memorial Road Race earlier in the afternoon from Tony Morford of Australia and the French boys Langella and Lefebvre. Kerwin, referring of course to Kerwin Clegg, the man who founded the Manx International back in 1936 and built it up with his team of the Manx Viking Wheelers and the other Manx clubs into the International Race Week that we know and love until his sad death in 1982. Mike Bell then in front, Gary Adamson in second, and it sounds like a little bit of a repeat of Douglas because it is pretty much the same field as before, although there's one interesting additional Australian I should point out, and that's Jay Sweet, who in fact, as I speak, there he is in front, coincidentally. He's the reigning Australian criterium or circuit or Kermesse champion, the various words all meaning the same thing, this form of racing. He's come along as part of the Australian team, didn't ride in Douglas, but here he is in Port Erin. Won 3 stages of the Tour of Langkawi, which was the name given to actually the Tour of Malaysia much earlier in this season. Took the Sprints jersey as well. Comes from Adelaide and really is a powerhouse in this particular form of racing. Jay Sweet still on the front. He's got a tremendous finishing sprint in this sort of racing. Again, part of the Australian team putting together their final preparations for the Olympic Games in Atlanta. So he promises to be a bit of a handful for all the rest of the non-Australian riders, of whom, of course, there are several. Mike Bell, Gary Adamson, that familiar Merseyside duo who love this form of racing, love sprinting for the cream prizes or the lap prizes and getting a fiver a throw over and above what's on the prize list for the first few over the line at the end of the race. And a pretty familiar sort of picture. The French boys are up there. There's Rick Clough in the red and blue of the Stretford Wheelers. Remember, we saw him performing quite well in Douglas. And Mike Bell out ploughing a bit of a lonely furrow here after the fivers. So no great surprise there. Really is adept at this form of racing, Mike. And as you see, a little bit of a break there, 5 or 6 riders, and the gap's opening, and as I said earlier, when the gap's open, you know that the pace is high. Jay Sweet from Australia, member of the Giant team. I don't mean Giant in stature, the name of the sponsors. Sweet then, still in the lead. Langella in second place. I beg your pardon, that's Lefebvre in the lead at the moment for France. And 1 or 2 riders already shed off the back. This leading bunch now by no means as large as it was at the start, as the French and the Kazakhstanis and the Australians, as well as the stronger British riders, really keep this blistering pace here in Port Erin. Julien Almansa looking particularly strong. Tony Morford also, the Australian, right up there. Got second in Kerwin's race, the New South Wales man. The whistle's going. Just let me remind you once again, if you hear a whistle, don't worry about it. It's just a technique that's used by race officials and marshals just to warn spectators that the race is coming around a corner at high speed, and they should obviously stay off the road. Gary Adamson then still in the lead at this moment. But still a tidy group in contention for this international kermesse, or circuit race, here in Port Erin. Mike Bell piling on the pressure once again. Tony Morfett up into second place. Almansa in third. Round they go, these corners, bringing out the best of bike handling in these riders. If you can't handle your bike at high speed round tight corners, you're never going to do well in this form of racing. You've got to be pretty courageous to do it at high speed and resist the temptation to touch the brakes. Bell then, forcing the pace once again. An Australian right behind him, the French, the Kazakhstanis. They're all still there, in with a shout here in Port Erin. Boy, it must be very, very hot out there for these riders as round and round they go, this little half-mile circuit at high speed. Morfett then in the lead. Lefebvre, number 2 for France, right on his wheel. Still Tony Morfett then. And Jay Sweet, I noticed, has moved up quite well once again. I think he's lying just about in third place at the moment. These two Australians seeking to impose themselves on the Kazakhstanis, but 3 laps to go, and look at this. The Kazakhstanis once again mounting this aggressive team effort at the front. In fact, 4 of them at the front. Could this be a repeat of 1993 when the big Nadobenko from Kazakhstan provided us with a thrilling victory? Remember, they got a 1-2 in Douglas. Can they do it here? Look, all these Kazakhstani jerseys at the front. This is incredible stuff. They're trying to line themselves up again, just as they did in Douglas. Well, they've got stiff opposition here, and this is not far off the Bell lap. I think it's the Bell next time. And there's one of the Frenchmen at least still in amongst those Kazakhstanis. Where are the Australians, though? The Australians don't want to be too far out of this. They're also up there. 2 laps to go, and still the pace being governed by the forcefulness of the Kazakhstanis at the front. Still the big, powerful team of the Kazakhstanis keeping this pace blistering hot. Less than 2 laps to go, less than 1 mile of racing remaining as the Kazakhstanis still keep the pace high. The Frenchmen are both still in there, the 2 who are most likely to break the stranglehold of the Kazakhstanis. Almansa and Lefebvre are still right up there, but where are Sweet and Morfett as we come up to what will be the Bell this time? They're not far behind. In fact, one of them tucked up right in the middle in about 3rd or 4th place. It's going to be very, very tight coming up to the Bell this time. And there goes the Bell in Port Erin at the end of this international kermesse. Kazakhstan still 1-2. The French, though, and the Aussies are still poised. It could well be a repeat for the Kazakhstanis, or are the Australians going to spoil the party for them? Less than a lap to go. It's a Frenchman, that looks like Lefebvre in 3rd place, trying to get on terms with the Kazakhstanis, but I noticed that Sweet is there in 4th place. The reigning Australian Criterium champion, with the one with the powerful sprint finish, is right up there in 4th. They're coming round towards the brief stretch of the promenade before swinging left again into the home straight. Only about 200 metres to go now. Round the last corner, still Kazakhstan 1 and 2. France 3 and Sweet 4. And here comes Sweet on the outside. Look at this for a final gallop from the Australian. And on the line, incredibly, Jay Sweet has provided a blistering sprint finish from around about 4th place in the group to come past the Frenchman Lefebvre, and more importantly for him, to come back both Kovalev and Vinokurov to take victory here in Port Erin. What an incredible sprint. A little pat of appreciation from Lefebvre, who realises he was beaten by a good man as he chats with Almansa very briefly. I'm surprised he's got the breath to say anything, but what a result for Jay Sweet. He's obviously in scintillating form, winning the Port Erin kermesse ahead of the Kazakhstanis and the French.